Hello and welcome to Warcraft Radio's coverage of Bastion Part 4. My name is Kexman, and where we left off last time we had just seen Uther. That's right, Bluther himself was talking to disciple Nicolon. He's mentioned that he is ready and waiting. He's given him the terms. Now we have a short escort quest with Nicolon. It's not very long. Obviously, we run into the problem that we see quite often. He runs too fast for us when we are not on a mount. However, when we are on a mount, he's running slightly too slow, so we have to keep waiting. There does seem to be a little bit of a middle ground issue here. If he was running at the same sort of speed as we do normally, then it wouldn't be so much of an issue, but because you have to mount up to keep up, he's then too slow. Interesting to note that he mentions how people in the temple are suffering. Seems to be a fairly idyllic area. There's obviously a lot of rituals going on, a lot of people remembering past memories that they might not want to remember, but I wouldn't exactly call this place a area that you would have suffering. It's actually nice to get a little bit of one-on-one time with a character like this. We've obviously helped out various different people, such as Pelagos. We've obviously helped out a lot of various aspirants, dueling them, helping them to destroy bad memories. But having some one-on-one time, seeing how this person is dealing with all of the issues, actually gives us a little bit more of a tie to the zone, and a little bit more of a tie to the things that Kyrians are going through, so I like that little touch. One thing that is happening a lot is something that is known as the pronoun game, so they are saying stuff like, I can't believe you would do this, or I can't believe they would do this, I can't believe that. It's essentially meaning that we don't know exactly who they're talking about. For example, Nicolon there said, I don't, who will if I go? And it's interesting to note that we don't know this. It means that we're constantly asking questions, and during this part of the quest line in this area, this happens a lot. And whilst it does build up a little bit of mystery, whilst it does build up a little bit of doubt as to what we're doing, it gets a little bit too much. Speaking of names, we have Uther coming up. This gives a little bit of backstory as to what exactly is happening with Uther. Not a whole lot, but it definitely means that some people do keep their old names going into this. It means that people can crop up later if we want to have them experienced in the questline. It means that we have more of a relationship to them. As you can see there, I leveled up to 51, which is about right for this. We're probably around halfway through the zone, and this zone is meant to be 50 to 52, so the actual amount of experience you're getting from the main quest line is quite nice. You may have seen a couple of quests pop up throughout on my mini-map. They're not necessary to the quest line, so having this level at this point in the zone through only very, very centric quest lines is actually quite nice. Obviously, the graphics here are slightly lower. You may notice this throughout the video. The reason for this is, at this point, the alpha was slightly unstable for me. I needed to make sure that my graphics weren't causing any critical errors. That was happening quite often, so I had to turn down my graphics for this, but it doesn't affect the story at all. And we now move in to a very, very personal cleansing here with Nicolon. And there's a few lines here from Erida that the first time I did this quest, I didn't really think much of. I was thinking to myself, yes, okay, they want to trust in the process. And Nicolon mentioning, how can we trust in this process when it is as painful as it is? Who is to say that this is what we should do? And it wasn't until this playthrough, as I was recording this footage, I had a sudden memory of the Illidan cutscene when he's talking to Zera. And Zera is being very, very singular about his destiny, about cleansing Illidan, forcing it upon him. And there's a slight parallel to this, because at no point does Nicolon have any say in this. It's more a case of, you are Kyrian, this is what will happen. I don't know if there is any connection to that, if it is just a case of piecing together two very obvious bits of forced upon cleansing, forced upon ideologies. or whether or not there is something slightly deeper to this. I don't want to come across as sort of saying, you know, this is how it's going to happen. I don't want to become one of those YouTubers. That's not what I'm getting at here, but it's interesting to note that there is a parallel there. Nikolon turning into a fallen Kyrian now does make sense. We see him struggling with these ideas, not being able to get past them, and eventually he does become what we have seen as the fallen Kyrian, the darker blue skin, the darker armour, the darker wings. It's at this point that there is a slight jump. I'm not 100% sure if this is a missing cutscene, if there was supposed to be a little bit more dialogue here. We again see Nikolon playing the pronoun game. They are coming. Who's they? We don't know. I will stand among them. Again, we don't know who it is. It kind of gives us, again, a little bit more of a, okay, I understand that something is happening, but who is it? Why are they here? What would they want? That is answered a little bit further in, but at this point, it's slightly confusing. You can see here they mentioned they are attacking, and then we suddenly jump to these fallen Kyrian, or the Forsworn, all over the Temple of Purity. I'm not sure if that's meant to have some form of a cutscene there, if there's meant to be some sort of dialogue, but it does feel as though there is a missing link. I'm not entirely sure. It's not a smooth cut in between the two quests. This area does give you a very, very simple kill quest where you have to fill a progress bar by killing Forsworn acolytes, protecting people, something along those lines. We haven't had a lot of those, so it's quite nice to have this at this stage. Just gives us a little bit of grinding to do. And the bells that are used for various cleansing activities have also been somehow corrupted by the Forsworn. It's not made abundantly clear, however they will occasionally ring out in this area, give you a slight debuff to your haste and your movement speed. There's no real warning. All of a sudden your screen will go purple, you'll hear a big dong, and that'll be it for you. Now, the placement of this quest is slightly odd. You have to go through the zone, or through the majority of the zone, even past one of the main bell, sort of like bells that you have to cleanse, to get to this quest, and then to go back through the same zone. It does seem slightly strange. I'm not sure whether it would be better to have at the start of the zone, or whether it would be something that you would pick up from Erida herself. I suppose the thinking behind it is, after you have cleared both the bells and after you have cleared out your progress bar, you've cleansed, quote-unquote, the temple, you then have to go back through the area to turn your quests in, so I think that might play a slight part in it. I'm not 100% sure. That is kind of how it feels. Obviously, once you've achieved all this, you then meet with Erida at a bridge which appears to be at the western portion, the furthest portion of the Temple of Purity. And ahead of you, you see a lot of Forsworn Ascended, you see a lot of Acolytes, pointing out it's odd to get a shield there. Even though I'm in Fury spec, I do understand they want people to be able to tank if needs be, but it does seem slightly strange. It does mention here that you confront Lysonia, who we've seen shouting in the skies. We've seen shouting during this whole event of the Temple of Purity. She's the one that leaves a lot of the scrolls that you pick up. She mentions, obviously, taking over from the Kyrians. She mentions that you will not be forgotten. You will not have to forget your previous life as one of the Forsworn, which seems to be one of the major sticking points. And it's at this point that the quest takes a bit of a strange turn. This next quest area, or this next sort of area where these next few quests take place, are, if not slightly, they're slightly slow, and there's some confusion. It feels as though there's a couple of different narratives that are trying to take place here. It feels as though there are a couple of unused quest lines potentially, or there's a change here. Again, Alpha, these things can change. I'm not 100% sure. This first quest, we go and cleanse some of the bells. Now, it's nice to have something slightly different. It's nice to have a little bit of sort of command of the air with these Kyrians, because they do have the wings, they can fly. It's slightly odd to see a Tauran warrior who is twice the size of the Kyrian being carried, but we'll go with it. It's a magic land. Magic things can happen. It's odd to it is odd. It would be nice to have a bigger Kyrian carrying us, but it's how it goes at the end of the day. Again, Erida, Lysonia, making pronoun game plays. You can do this. I will. I do not wish to kill you. Why are you doing this? It doesn't answer any questions, just presents more. This whole quest here is quite annoying. The actual bells that you need to hit, there is no indication as to what sort of progress you've made. I've hit them once and they've been cleansed. I've hit them 4 times and they haven't been cleansed. Again, Alpha, these things can change. The Forsworn Disciples don't really give you any grief. You have a button that you can attack to get rid of them, but I don't believe you're in any danger whatsoever of this happening. It's kind of almost there as a throwaway. Oh, this happens, press this button. It's not really engaging. It would probably be nicer if you actually had to target where the hammer was being thrown, so you could target the bell directly rather than just pressing a button and it happening for you. I would much rather have that as being the interactive part, just targeting yourself where your hammer is going to go. As all of this is happening, Lysonia and Erida are having a discussion, a strong argument, shall we say, mentioning that the Kyrians, their cleansing is for the best. It is who they are, and it's never brought up as to exactly why this is, why the Kyrians should be this way. Why is this the only way that Kyrians can do this? It's never brought up, and whether or not this is something that is going to be kind of having an effect in future storylines, we don't know. Now we get the sudden appearance of Vesiphone. Vesiphone? I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced. And this is where things get very confusing. This is the moment where I was talking about earlier. It feels as though there are 2 or 3 quest lines and narratives merging, but we only experience one of those. So my understanding of it is that Vesiphone has captured Lysonia and is attempting to cleanse her. Erida doesn't want this happening. It's mentioned that she knows that Lysonia cannot be cleansed. She knows that this is something that's happening, and she mentions that Lysonia is very dear to her, but at no point do we ever see this. It's mentioned a couple of times that they obviously have a history together and that she is Erida's soulbind, but again, we never see anything of this. It's mentioned in passing, so this doesn't really have a whole lot of an impact on us. Once we've obviously got through this and Erida has stopped Vesiphone, we then get another really, really strange quest where Lysonia is mentioning that she needs to finish her work, of which we don't know, mentioning the Paragon must die, obviously speaking of Vesiphone, and we now have to defeat Lysonia for some reason. The Paragon isn't really helping us. It seems odd. It seems as though there's another quest in between this, or there should have been a quest before. One thing when finding this is you definitely don't want to be as terrible as I am. You want to make sure that you are dodging various stuns. You want to make sure that you are killing stuff off as quickly as possible. I, however, decide to eat every single stun and nearly die in the process. Luckily, as a Fury Warrior, I can heal myself. I can press buttons that suddenly make me feel better just because I'm so angry. The fight isn't that hard. As this is going on, there's no other commentary, there's no other speech from either Erida or Vesiphone or even Lysonia herself, so again, there's very little emphasis for us to actually be helping here. And now we get to another strange part where Lysonia mentions that she's not going to forget this. She directly talks to Erida. Vesiphone says that this power, no, it cannot be. And then all of a sudden, Lysonia is dead, or a fragment of her is here. And Erida mentions, what have you done to me, when nothing actually happened. I don't know whether there is a missing voice line, or whether there is a part to the quest that hasn't been finished yet. It's very jarring for us to again be told that we should protect this person when we know nothing about them. There's no actual story in regards to who they are, how they're connected. It's mentioned that Lysonia is Erida's soulbind, but again, we never see it's in passing. So it does feel slightly odd for us to suddenly care about protecting this person, suddenly helping Erida. I imagine further on down the line there are quests that may actually explore this, but for this quest line, it doesn't seem to work at all. We now get a very nice overlook on the zone, which, with the graphics turned down to their lowest, doesn't look that great, but trust me, when the graphics are at their highest, it looks incredible. This zone, the Temple of Purity, is a really, really nice looking zone. We actually get an indication of where we're going next. This isn't just a flight path where we go to our next zone. We actually get some story. We're travelling to somewhere called the Mnemonic Locus, which draws memories out from people so they can be stored, people can review them later. Kind of at odds with how the Kyrians work, where you forget about your previous life, you are almost reborn as a Kyrian. Interesting to note that we can go back and review these memories if we so wish. It could lead to some exciting storylines down the line. I would be interested to see Uther potentially play a part. Maybe we go back into his memories. Maybe we see some of the stuff he did with Arthas. Potentially even seeing his falling when Arthas battled him. That would be quite an interesting story to go back to. And speaking of interesting stories, part 5 of Bastion will be coming soon. My name has been Kexman. Thank you for joining me.